Alright guys, the ginger video that you've been asking for, I've planned to do this video way back since the spring of 2022. Finally, it's making its way on air. It's a top 20 ginger fragrances video, and we've got a couple of bonus options as well. So if you're curious to learn about ginger fragrances, then please stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian. Yeah, today we're talking about ginger fragrances. So this is this note that I've grown to love and enjoy. I like its freshness because it's a fresh spice, but I also like its intensity, its heat, its spice, its zing. Really a great fragrance note. And of course, as I said, it creates fresh spiciness to fragrances, and it also kind of adds a fizziness to fragrances, which I quite like. There are several fragrances here the ginger creates for a bit of, I don't know, like a Coca-Cola-esque fizz or just a sparkling, effervescent vibe. So I love that about ginger, but in general, I really enjoy eating ginger or using it in cuisine, and I like the smell in fragrances as well. And before we move on, I just want to say the way I'm ranking this list is not only of preference, but also how much gingeriness there is in the fragrances. So we're gonna go ahead and get started with a feminine targeted release, but this is definitely a very, very unisex fragrance. This is from the house of Hermes. It's TWILLY de Hermes Eau Ginger, this one right here. So it's not one of my all-time favorite fragrances from this house. I prefer the other one, but this is definitely a ginger bomb, but also it's very soapy shampoo-like. It's got ginger, peony, candied ginger, and cedar. So it's basically two kinds of ginger. The cedar for a woody note, and then it's contrasted with this beautiful floral note of peony. Not necessarily the best fragrance, but I feel like I had to mention it because it's all about ginger. So it's TWILLY de Hermes Eau Ginger. Check that out if you don't know it. Moving on to the house of Comme des Garçons, this is Rouge. Now this is not mostly about ginger, but there's definitely a prominent ginger note in this. That's why it's ranked lower, but as a Comme des Garçons rank list, this would be pretty high for me. It's beetroot, frankincense, ginger, pink pepper, geranium, patchouli, and labdanum. So the beetroot has a very interesting fruitiness about it, and it's nicely contrasted with smokiness from the frankincense and that zing and spice from the ginger. Of course, there's other notes in there as well. Very unique fragrance. If you like unique fragrances just the way Comme des Garçons does, you got to get your nose on this one, but you got to make sure you enjoy vegetal fragrances. Of course, beetroot is a vegetable. So Rouge from the house of Comme des Garçons, check that out. Next, going to the house of MAISON CRIVELLI. This is SANTAL Volcanique. The ginger is pretty prominent here, but it's not like a beefy ginger. It's kind of accentuating the sandalwood here to create kind of this ice-cold contrast to the sandalwood. But we've got lots of sandalwood, ginger, there's coffee, some ylang, cardamom, lime, musk, and cedar. So it's a very woody fragrance, but contrasted with that zing and spice and the heat from ginger. Of course, ginger not necessarily, it does have heat, but to me it's not like the warmth of the heat like something like cinnamon. It's a very, very fresh heat. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's the experience I have with ginger. Anyway, Santal Volcanique at number 18. Then moving on to a new house called the Cologne house. This is ginger in D major, this one right here. Do you guys know this house? I did a video on this house. Go check it out if you haven't watched that video. There is a giveaway, but I believe we're going to close it very soon. Now, this is ginger with ink, cardamom, vetiver, cashmeran, mimosa, latex, lemons, and leather. Very unique combination of notes. Definitely the ink is there, but also the lots of the zing and the spice from the ginger. It's very spicy, it's fresh, it's a fresh zing here, and you've got you know, the cardamom pungency in here. It's got a very spicy edge, a little bit soapy, and then of course some musks and some floral touches. Very interesting fragrance. It's not one of my favorites from this house, but definitely worth noting. It's ginger in D major from the Cologne house. So we're getting into a couple of floral ginger fragrances, and I've left a couple of fragrances off the list as well. I keep wanting to add more fragrances, but I want to keep it at 20. This is from the house of Molton Brown. This is Heavenly Ginger Lily. So it's got ginger, but it's got lily as well. So there's definitely a floral ginger spice zing here happening. Ginger, cardamom, cloves, lily, tuberose, marigold, sandalwood, and musk. I feel like ginger and cardamom really work wonderfully together. They're two spices and they're very fresh spices, so they kind of like really like not I guess, yeah, they do complement one another. They enhance the fresh spiciness of their you know, smells and things like that. But there's some warmth here from the cloves and lots of lily and tuberose for a floral touch, of course, with the marigold as well. And then there's the musk and the woods. Heavenly, ginger lily in the eau de toilette version from the house of Molten Brown. Any fans of that house? Moving on to the house of Jo Malone. This is dark amber and ginger lily. So this is a fragrance I wore way back when, mid 2000s, when I was really heavily into Jo Malone after my 90s fragrance burnout of the intense fragrances. But this was actually kind of getting into the more intense eau de cologne fragrances from Jo Malone, and when this came out, it was a favorite of mine. So it's got ginger with amber, there's black orchid, there's black cardamom, Chiara incense, and water lily. So there's got a bit of a spiritual vibe about this one. I think it's an Asian inspired, Japanese inspired fragrance, but definitely the zing is there from the ginger. There's definitely ambery touches and of course floral touches in here as well. And there's that cardamom again. It really does complement the ginger note. So it's dark amber and ginger lily from the house of Jo Malone. That's a eau de cologne intense is what it's called. Moving on to the house of Nila Vermeer Creations. This is Treillis, this one right here. So this is a warm spicy fragrance utilizing ginger as a note, so it adds a contrast to the warmth to the fragrance with all its gingers, a zing, and intensity. So it's lots of ginger with cinnamon. There's cardamom once again. There's incense, myrrh, elemi, blackcurrant, saffron, oud, vanilla, amber. Very complex fragrance. Lots going on here. It's created by Bertrand Duchaffoul. The ginger is really the star here of this particular fragrance, but there's lots of warmth contrasted. For me, I feel like ginger does complement a lot of spices. Not only the fresh spices, also the warm spices. You know, the chai drink, there's definitely ginger in there and things like that, and they throw in the warm spices and also the fresh spices in there. Really wonderful combination. But this is definitely a warm fragrance, a warm spicy fragrance with that bit of fresh zing and spice from the ginger thrown in there. So it's Treillis from the house of Nila Vermeer Creations. Almost went blank there for a minute. Moving on to the house of Amarud. This is white hinoki, this one right here. So this is a very intense fragrance. The fragrances from this house are pretty potent, very, very long lasting. This one to me, so it's hinoki wood, right? For me, it smells like cypress. It's got that very aromatic green smell, which is kind of like almost like a cross between pine and other similar kind of notes, maybe also juniper. But it's very interesting here. It's contrasted with the ginger, lots of it. And here we got a kind of a very fizzy, soapy quality here, and it tones down its kind of camphoric touches of and aromatic touches of the hinoki. So it's lots of hinoki wood, ginger, there's labdanum, there's tobacco and grapefruit, but for me what's going on mostly here is the ginger and the hinoki wood. A really wonderful fragrance that I've kind of circled back to and enjoying from this house. They do have really great fragrances, but you got to be into really, really intense fragrances, and Amarud definitely has a lot of them. So this is Amarud's white hinoki at number 13. So up next, going to the house of Etat Libre Orange. This is Tilda Swinton Like This, or Just Like This, from the house of Etat Libre Orange. So this one utilizes lots of Immortelle with pumpkin and ginger. So it's kind of a very autumn-like fragrance experience. It also has clementine with heliotrope, vetiver, musk, and orange blossom. To me, the ginger adds that nice zing and spice. And once again, this is also a bit fizzy and sparkling, but the Immortelle creates that very autumn-like dry touch to the fragrance. With the pumpkin, a very unique note. What does pumpkin smell like? I don't know, it has a very unique but very faint smell, but the whole combination of notes works really wonderfully together and creates for a very autumn-like experience with the kind of zing and spice and the heat that the ginger provides. So it's Tilda Swinton Like This at number 12. And then moving on to the house of Origins, this is Ginger Essence, this one right here. So this is a fragrance that is very light and I feel like it's perfect for after a shower, but but it's definitely that kind of very zingy, spicy ginger note here. So for me, it's ginger with lemon, bergamot, and lime. For me, this one has a very ginger ale-like touch to the fragrance, and it's really, really refreshing after a hot shower. Just spritz it on. It's very, very light, but it works really great, highlighting that ginger note, making for a wonderful fragrance. I believe the actual fragrance itself is an eau de toilette, but for me, it has a very light touch to the fragrance. So it smells wonderful. It's not very long lasting. Very, very fun and zingy fragrance that's, you know, very easy to wear. So ginger essence from the House of Origins at number 11. Then moving on to the House of Javoy. This is Remember Me. Remember Me is definitely a ginger, cardamom, milky, lactonic chai latte or just chai fragrance wearing experience. It's lots of tea with milk, so it's got a very lactonic vibe. It's got the vanilla, cardamom, and then that ginger comes in and throws in the zing and spice here. Again, cardamom ginger works really wonderfully, and this is that whole combination, as I was mentioning, that chai experience. It's ginger, cardamom, and then of course we've got the latte, the milk and the tea in this one. Really great fragrance, very cozy, really wonderful to wear. If you like lactonic fragrances with zing and spice, definitely try Remember Me from the House of Javoy at number 10. Moving on to the House of ROUGE Parfums. This is Creation E or Enigma pour Homme. This one, to me, it's got lots of effervescence, and even though it's got lots of cognac, tobacco, vanilla, benzoin, and lots of ginger here as well, and I feel like with these notes and the combination, it's giving us this kind of like Coca-Cola fizziness in this particular fragrance. In addition to those notes, there's black pepper, neroli, bergamot, jasmine, and patchouli. Definitely a really great smelling fragrance, but I do get that Coca-Cola vibe. Really fun, playful, effervescence, and delicious boozy fragrance. So it's Enigma pour Homme from the House of ROUGE Parfums. Great fragrance at number 9. And moving on to number 8, going to the House of Nichane, it's Ani, this one right here. Once again, it's a fragrance with vanilla and woods and sandalwood, but lots of ginger and cardamom as well. One of the best from the House of Nichane. I really love this fragrance. Really smells great. It smells fantastic, and I love the way the notes work really wonderfully together. It's lots of vanilla, as I said, with the woods and then the sandalwood, so it's definitely got a creamy vibe with the sandalwood, and that ginger comes in and adds its kind of like zing and spice to the fragrance and creates for a very zingy, spicy fragrance contrasted with the vanilla, creamy sandalwood. And of course the cardamom comes in as well. There's a little bit of blackcurrant in here, and of course some pink pepper and some citrusy touches. Really wonderful fragrance, Ani from the House of Nichane. Check that out if you don't know it. Moving on to the House of Healy, James Healy. This is Zest de Gingembre. I actually bought this specifically for this video last year at Javoy when I was there in September, and nobody's selling this brand here in the States anymore, which is a bummer because they were here at Barney's for the longest time. But I really wanted this because it's all about ginger. It's a great smelling fragrance. It's ginger with lime, orange, cardamom, pink pepper, and once again it's got that kind of like ginger ale fizziness here happening, whereas with the ROUGE Parfums it was more like Coca-Cola, but here it actually really feels like ginger ale or acts like ginger ale because it's mostly about the ginger and the citruses. And of course there's that cardamom that comes in, once again a little bit of fresh spice with the fresh spice of pink pepper, a little bit of rosiness. Really delicious, and I think it's a great alternative to your mostly citrus fragrances for the summer, and you can have one that's kind of fizzy and also zingy, spicy with a ginger. So it's Zest de Gingembre from the House of Healy. And then moving on to the House of J.U.S Parfum, or J.U Parfum, J.U.S. This is GINGERLILY. This is another fragrance I bought specifically for this video, and I've been wanting to do it since last summer or earlier than that. And this is once again a really wonderful fresh ginger fragrance. This one's not as ginger ale like, but it still kind of acts like it. There's lots of bergamot here with ginger, and there's angelica, there's musks, ambroxan, pink pepper, hedione, cabruva. But once again, it's a really great alternative to mostly a citrus fragrance where you've got lots of citruses, but you also got some, zing and spice from the ginger as well to give you a very unique twist to a very fresh fragrance. Of course, this one has lots of musks and also that kind of light vegetal touch from angelica. So this is GINGERLILY from the house of J.U.S. Parfums. So moving on to number 5, going to the house of L'Artisan Parfumeur. This is Tea for Two. This has got to be here. Not only does it have lots of ginger, it also has gingerbread, and it is super delicious. It's a warm, spicy fragrance with fresh spices like ginger. It's lots of ginger. It's really, really delicious. Love it. And there's tobacco in here as well to create for this kind of a dirty ashiness with its warmth and spiciness. So it's lots of tea with tobacco, cinnamon, spices, honey, ginger, anise, and gingerbread. I think this is one of my favorite fragrances that Olivia Jacobetti has made. Absolutely love it, and I'll keep recommending it because it's super delicious. So Tea for Two from the house of L'Artisan Parfumeur. Love, love, love that stuff. Moving on to the house of Maison Cyr. This is Eau de Gingembre, this one right here. This is like ginger in your face. Really, really wonderful ginger. It smells very zingy and spicy, and they've amplified the spiciness of the ginger with this one, but it's got this freshness. And again, if you want something totally different than straight in your face citruses for the summer, go for something that has like mostly ginger with a lot of citruses, because that's really, really fresh here. Really, really wonderful. Lots of Calabrian bergamot with ginger. There's Tunisian neroli, petitgrain, fig leaf, cypress, and white woods. This is super, super zingy and super spicy, and the ginger is in your face with the citruses. I love it. It's Eau de Gingembre from the house of Maison Cyr. You guys know that house? Let me know. Put some comments down if you are fans of these fragrances so far. So up next, there's a fragrance that I cannot find the bottle for, unfortunately, so I'm just going to talk about it. This is from the house of Serge Lutens. This is 5 o'clock au gingembre. I don't know where the heck my bottle has gone to, but this to me is also kind of a fizzy, sparkling, effervescent ginger ale like touch here, but mostly more complex than just ginger ale, if that makes sense. This is a great scent from the house of Serge Lutens. It's lots of tea with candied ginger. There's cinnamon, there's bergamot, there's woods, there's honey, amber, pepper, cacao, patchouli. So it's gourmand. It's got gourmand touches, and again, it's more than just ginger. So you have that fizziness, a bit of ginger ale like touch here, but there's a lot more happening. There's warmth, there's honey sweetness, there's amber, there's spices and fresh spices, and of course the cacao and things like that. Sad I can't show you the bottle, but I'm sure most of you know about 5 o'clock au gingembre, and that is at number 3 from the house of Serge Lutens. And then moving on to the house of Cartier. This is where is the name of this fragrance? Here it is. Oud Radio. This one right here. Man, this is good. This is really, really good. Ginger in your face, but this is the spicy kind. The kind that you put in your mouth pickled after you eat some sushi. That is how spicy this is. Really, really spicy. Hot ginger, but still very, very fresh, because ginger is a fresh spice. So it's lots of ginger with oud and Sichuan pepper, and that adds the more spiciness to the mix. It adds more spices and some light lemoniness as well. There's a little bit of a light lemon undertone here. And the oud is a very wearable oud. This is not, for me, this is not about oud. It's there, and the ginger kind of enhances it, makes it more, you know, inviting, I think, because ginger is a very unique note in here. It is in your face ginger to warn you. If you don't like ginger, this is not one you should try, because it is hot and spicy and very, very zingy. Really wonderful fragrance. Oud Radio from the house of Cartier at number 2. And then the number 1 fragrance I recommend is from the house of Sol Couture, Gender Ginger. Oh my god, I fell in love with this last June. Instant love for me. It's the ginger in your face, but a lot more complex than the Oud Radeau from the house of Cartier. Cartier's Oud Radeau is a very expensive fragrance, but it smells fantastic with the ginger, and I feel like there's not a lot going on here. This is a lot more complex, and a lot more things happen with it. First off, it's very gingery. Lots of ginger here. It's zingy, it's spicy, it's fresh, but there's some warmth there because it has lots of amber here. There's definitely lots of ambery touches with this one. And of course, there's rosewood, lots of musk, and then there's a grapefruit freshness, bergamot freshness, and then of course some patchouli, some earthy, dense patchouli. Oh man, the combination is super delicious. You gotta get your nose on this one. Gender Ginger from the house of Sol Couture. If you haven't heard this house, it's a small Italian house, very indie, but highly recommended here. Gender Ginger is amazing. So check that out if you can. That is the number 1 fragrance, my favorite ginger fragrance. But a lot of these, the top 5 and top 10 are some of the most amazing ginger fragrances, and I highly recommend them. So let me know if you are a fan of these fragrances, and also let me know if you like ginger in fragrances. Do you like it more as a star, where, you know, A lot of these fragrances were featuring ginger as the star note, or do you prefer it in the background, kind of like to accentuate, to complement some fragrances? I'd like to find out. And if you are a fan of the fragrances featured in this video, which are your favorites? And if you haven't sampled any of the fragrances here, which are you going to rush out and sample first? Anyway guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, please list below. Please like this video, please share it, follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye. So I've got a couple of bonuses here for you. Both of them are eau de cologne fragrances. The first one is from the house of Roger & Gallet. This is Eau de Gingembre. So this is a fragrance I wore way back in 2006. The first time I visited France, I ended up buying a bottle of this stuff from the pharmacy and instantly fell in love with how fizzy, ginger ale-like it was. Really loved it. It was fresh, not very long lasting. It was just like a kind of a little, tiny bottle that I had bought, and I'd carry it with me everywhere and spritz because it doesn't last long, so you just have to replenish over and over again. But I really love it because it's ginger, it's zingy, spicy, and then there's this kind of like freshness about it, and that I like that acts like a ginger ale. So it's perfect to wear, very fresh, and it's not long lasting, as I said, so you need to replenish over and over again because it's an eau de cologne. So that is Eau de Gingembre from the house of Roger & Gallet. And then finally from Aqua Colonia, 4711 Aqua Colonia collection, lemon and ginger, and this is a great combination, wonderful combination. And again, it's an eau de cologne, so it doesn't have great longevity, but it's a super fantastic kind of fizzy, sparkling, not necessarily full of ginger ale-like quality, but imagine taking Sprite or 7-Up and mixing it with ginger ale and mixing, you know, drinking it or something. That's the kind of wear I get with this one. It's very fresh, and both of these fragrances are perfect for when it's really warm outside, when you don't want very heavy fragrances. Anyway, those are the two bonus fragrances for you. Thanks so much for watching, and stay tuned for another video tomorrow. Bye-bye.